how to test people. So that doesn't sound necessarily like a good thing to do or a very nice thing to do, but it becomes very important when we talk about testing for toxicity, and that's what we're really testing for. So many survivors have wondered, what can we do to make sure we keep ourselves safe from toxic people, especially narcissists. Some of us have made the mistake of getting married to a narcissist or getting into a relationship with a narcissist. Some of us have found ourselves trapped in those relationships for many years with difficulty getting out. And so this theme tonight can help us to make sure we're not back in those situations, but not just in romantic relationships, but with our friends. How do we test? How do we make sure? How do we find out? How do we know if someone's actually toxic or if they're a decent person that we can work with? One of the things about a toxic person is that they don't necessarily always come out and say, "Hi, my name's Bill. I'm actually evil." I do want you to know that ahead of time. Many toxic people hide what they are and who they are and would rather make you believe that they are trustworthy. And so they lie to you. And that can be especially daunting for us as survivors because we're wondering, well, now how am I going to protect myself since these people aren't just being honest, they're not just showing up and telling me who they are, but they're creeping in, acting like nice people. They wear masks. They love bomb, right? Which love bombing is a technique where a toxic person, a narcissist, or an avoidant person will be really, really sweet to you up front, really, really kind to you, show all their best qualities, and even make it seem like this is always going to continue. Very giving, very generous, very loving. They seem empathetic. And then once they got you hooked and enmeshed and trusting them, then they finally let the mask drop, and then you start to see these signs that this person isn't what you thought they were. So that's love bombing. So when we have things like that, it can make us wonder, how do we know if someone's toxic? How do we test to see if they're toxic? Now, both in vetting and I'm sorry, both in dating and in regular friendships, I recommend vetting. Vetting. So what do I mean when I say vetting? Just like you would for a job position, you're vetting for the positions in your life. Many trauma survivors complain they don't have enough people in their life, but the reality is, when I ask them how many people would you really want, they don't really need that many. We don't actually need a ton of people. Like we have in our mind, you ever watch the show Friends and they have like five friends, and then these friends just don't have any boundaries, just walk in each other's house at any time of the day. And that just seems like the dream, doesn't it? Just like, oh, this is great. Everyone's just walking in and walking out, and it's unrealistic. It's not sustainable. It lacks boundaries. And although it makes for a great television show, it is playing on a fantasy that we have, that we would be filled and surrounded by people around us that love us and support us and that we love and support. The reality of life is a little bit more nuanced than that. People equal issues and drama a lot of times. People aren't always on the same page and just having wacky adventures together. It's a little bit more difficult to find persons that are aligned with us and our purpose and our values. And what's more is that even when you have friends that aren't bad people, they're usually somewhat of a distraction. Again, even when you have friends that aren't bad people, even family members, they're usually somewhat of a distraction. So having a lot of people around you that just love you for you can distract you from fulfilling your purpose. So, so we overinflate in our brains what it would be like, what it would feel like to have these friends, and we think that these friends or these family members or having a lover in our life will fulfill us. But the reality is actually quite different. Having all of that love around you is actually potentially a stumbling block to keep you from actually accomplishing the things in life that you could accomplish, from fulfilling your potential. So So let's take it with a grain of salt. It's okay if you can find certain people that can support you, that can be allies toward you and your purpose. That's good. And we're going to find out how we can test for that right now. But understand that if for a period of time you don't have anyone in your life that you can say, hey, I truly trust this person, they're supportive, that's okay too. It's okay. We're not the helpless little children that have to have a grown up by us at all times. We're okay. It's okay to spend a period of time of your life without anybody close to you. Okay. You can deepen your spirituality, have your privacy, have your freedom, and really better your mental health and start working on your purpose. People that are highly accomplished, by the way, myself included, we don't have a bunch of people around us. Okay, it's not that I have trouble making friends. It's that I kind of just tend to keep people like just buddies, you know. Why? Because I have things that I want to accomplish that are important. And so purpose, right? And pleasing God to me is more important than having a bunch of people that I will then become distracted by trying to take care of, right? So many healthy people and people who are accomplishing a lot actually keep their life relatively simple in terms of not having too many people to take care of. Some people go as far as to not have children on purpose, not because they're not loving or they don't love kids, but because they want to keep that life kind of simplistic, right? Some people go as far as to not get married by choice, not because they're not attractive or no one loves them, just because they want to keep their life simplistic. So let's not overinflate in our minds what it's going to mean to have other people in our life. Let's keep it really balanced, okay? But when we do meet people, we have an opportunity. We do want to know how to test. So how do we test for a toxic person? How do we test for a toxic person? Well, when I say testing your friends or partners to determine if they're toxic, I'm talking about observing their behaviors and their attitudes, how they interact with you, with strategy. Observing their behaviors, attitudes with strategy. Number one thing you can do to test is see how they handle boundaries. To see how they handle boundaries. So we're going to need to set some boundaries of our own and watch how they handle other people's boundaries as well to see if they respect them. Set boundaries to see if they respect them. Um, Set time limits on your time together. Set limits on your frequency of contact, on when they can contact you and how they're supposed to contact you. We don't need to make these fake boundaries. We can just use authentic things in our life. Authentic boundaries are sufficient. So make it real. Make it things that you really would like to see and would appreciate, right? So setting these small boundaries gives us a very clear litmus test that will expose what they truly are. Because narcissists and toxic people struggle with respecting boundaries, especially narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths struggle with respecting boundaries. In the beginning, they can try to fake it. But if you remain as a well boundaried person and you keep setting boundaries, they will eventually crash and burn. All narcissists across the board, because that's their kryptonite. Their kryptonite is a person who's authentic, that has all of these boundaries and is able to get up and walk away from them when their boundaries are crossed. Narcissists can't survive that. They need a person who doesn't hold to their boundaries so that the narcissist can continue to cross the boundaries. Does that make sense? So if you say, hey, don't come over my house unannounced, and then they show up unannounced, they're testing you as well. And you're testing them, right? And their test is to see, are you a non-boundary person? Because that's who's going to be good prey for them, because narcissists are predators, right? So they look at you and they say, well, he said don't show up, so I'm going to show up and see what he does. And then when they see how you respond, then they know whether or not you're good prey for them. Right. So testing is not a bad thing. It's a part of it's a thing. It's just a part of relationships, especially in the beginning. Especially in the beginning. So we don't need to lie about anything. We can just set authentic boundaries. But make a point of doing it because this is your strongest indicator of who's toxic. It's not hard to understand what will happen when a toxic person encounters boundaries. They're going to get upset. They're going to get mad. They're going to try to press you on your boundaries. They're just going to show a lack of respect, or they're going to ghost you and run away. So when we're afraid of losing a person, that's kind of what keeps us from doing this. Okay. So that's part of the reason why you are susceptible to ending up in relationships with toxic people is because you're afraid to lose them. Your job is not to lose them, or is not to be afraid to lose them. Your job is not to keep them. Your job is not to keep these people around you. Your job is to keep yourself aligned with your purpose, which will keep you healed. And therefore, that involves losing people. Losing people is a part of your life. So as healthy, healed adults, losing people is a part of life. So don't try to hold on to everyone. If they disregard, push back against your boundaries, try to make you feel guilty for asserting them, it's time to cut them out. Cut them out. That simple. Here's another way of testing people. Notice their reactions to your success. So you can share with people a little bit about your accomplishments or some good news when it comes up and observe your response. Observe their response. Do they get angry or jealous when you show some success, when something good happens for you? Do they try to work against you or sabotage you in some way? Do they downplay your success? Do they redirect the conversation to themselves? Do they fail to just be happy for you? So observe the way they react to your success. Um, here's a third way that you can test people. Pay attention to how they speak about others. Pay attention to how they speak about others. Uh, if this is a romantic relationship, their exes. If this is a friendship that you're vetting them for, pay attention to how they speak about their other friends or their past friends. Does that make sense? Are they gossiping? They're out. Let them go. With too much of the gossiping is a no. Do they do blaming? Like instead of taking any responsibility for what happened in their past relationship, are they very quick to just be like, that person was horrible, they were this, they were that, and they talk really badly about their mate, their past mate? That could be something to pay attention to. We want to further observe. If we see that, we might not need to pump the brakes to slow down. All right. And if they talk negatively about other people consistently, then when you're not around, they'll talk negatively about you. If they talk negatively about other people, if everyone else is so stupid, and that's how they relate to you by telling you how everyone is so stupid, it's not going to be a good friend. That's tough, right? Because that's really common for people to talk about how everyone else is horrible, right? But you want to keep your guard up when you notice people are doing that. It's a toxic trait. When we first meet a person, if I can talk about love for a moment, um, your brain is designed to fall in love with one person. So when your brain gets locked in on a person, as you've noticed, it's hard to get it unlocked off of that person, usually speaking. So your brain is designed to lock in on one person. And then when you try to get it unlocked, it's like tough. Like, oh, I can't seem to fall out of love with this person, even when they're toxic. When you love a toxic person or you feel infatuated with a toxic person, that's a trauma bond. The love that you feel, like this love at first sight that you feel for a person before you know them well, that is called limerence. When you fall in love with a person, you don't know their flaws yet. That's called limerence. So what we need to do, instead of the old way of dating, where you would just go spend time with these people that you don't know and then see if there's chemistry, take that, throw that in the trash, okay? Because that's going to end you in a very bad place, and adopt this new way of getting to know people, which is vetting. So instead of seeing if there's chemistry and then just putting ourselves open to getting chemistry with someone who could be toxic, we're going to instead reserve the emotions, the feelings. So we're not going to fall in love. And so, just like it's difficult to fall out of love with a person after you've already fallen in love with them, we also have the ability to reserve our love up front. So, we have the ability to not fall in love with a person when we first meet them. So, you can resist getting a crush on someone going into limerence, but you have to do it right up front. So, go in with this mindset of, hey, I test everyone, I question everyone, I'm vetting for potentials in my life, but I don't just develop feelings for anyone that I don't know all the flaws that they have and they haven't committed to me yet. We don't want to develop feelings for a person that we don't know all the flaws of. And for ladies, hold back that love, all that love until you have an actual commitment in place. And that's a part of how we're protecting ourselves. Number 4, test how they respond to no. So when they ask you to do something, a minor request, politely decline. No, I won't be able to do that. This is in the very beginning of relationships. You can do this. Um, Someone asks you to do something small, like bring them a stapler, or it could be something big, like, hey, I want you to come over and meet my family. Say no and observe how they respond to your no. If they react with anger, manipulation, passive aggression, that's a an indication that you're not dealing with someone who's going to be able to handle a relationship. Because you can't go into a relationship with a person that you're afraid to say no to, can you? I mean, it's not going to be a good relationship. Imagine having to walk on eggshells around a person. That's what you're doing if you go into a relationship with a person who doesn't handle boundaries, who doesn't handle your no's well. So, like we were talking about, I believe this was on Monday, disappointing people. You test them by letting them down, seeing how they respond to it. Let me see how you respond when I have to say no. I'm gonna have to let you down. Does that make sense? Maybe they want to go to this restaurant, they want to meet you here, and you say no. If you want, we can do a video call. And they're, what? What? Let's see how they respond, right? When you don't want to take them on the expensive date, fellas. Let's see how they respond when you want to keep it simple. Do something small in the beginning. Number 5, evaluate their empathy. Evaluate their empathy. Some of the most dangerous people we could be in a relationship with are people that are not empathetic or who lack empathy. So we'll need to share our concerns and our feelings with the person with the objective of evaluating their empathy. If they dismiss your feelings, make the issue about themselves, show a lack of genuine concern, you might not want to move forward. You might even want to terminate the relationship or at least have a conversation because a lack of empathy is something you cannot move forward with. So you might say, oh, I'm really upset because I just got this scar on my face from an accident, and this is really important to me because I want to be a content creator, and now my face is going to be messed up. If they respond just making jokes, you can be Scarface, and it's got that lack of empathy. So little things like that are an indication that maybe you want to slow down on moving forward with this relationship. Definitely want to reserve those feelings. Definitely not going to give those feelings that love, right? The fall in love with that romantic love to someone who lacks empathy. And we're talking small in the beginning of the relationship. We're talking small. You're just sharing your feelings of concern, so, this is really upsetting. This happened or whatever. If they can't meet you there, they can't even give you that moment of, oh, wow, I'm really sorry to hear that. How hard is that to say? That lack of empathy is a really bad sign. And believe me, if you're thinking, man, I wish I would have known this, me too. I wish I would have known this in high school. Watch their reactions to stress. Watch their reactions to stress. Toxic people can't handle stress very well sometimes. Um, or if there is a person that doesn't handle stress, that's a guarantee that you're going to have trouble being in a relationship with them because life is stressful. Life is stressful. If you're taking notes, this is number 6 in our notes. Watch their reaction to stress. So there are challenges, inconveniences that come up. If something doesn't go their way, how do they respond? What do they do? Do they flip out? Because how do you can't build a life with someone who they can't handle stress. They come back later. Hey, I'm sorry that I blew up at you and called you names and crashed your car. I was just going under a lot of stress. What? So when you're under stress, you're abusive? That's what you're telling me? Okay. Put that in the notes. Oh, and by the way, keep a file on these people. Keep a literal written file. When you're first getting to know someone, you're in this vetting stage of someone like, I think they could be good. I don't know. Keep a file on them. Pay attention to these little things, write them down so you don't forget. They flipped out because the dishwasher didn't get the dishes done, it didn't turn on correctly, and they just flipped out and they broke a dish over it. Come on now. Well, we need the ability to cope with life in order for you to qualify to be my partner. Outbursts of anger due to stress, blaming others due to stress, lashing out, becoming emotionally, verbally abusive due to stress can't work. Number 7, look out for patterns of controlling behavior. Look out for patterns of controlling behavior. So you mentioned plans or decisions that you made independently and see how they react. They mentioned some plans or some decisions that you made and see if they're able to cope with the fact that you made a plan or a decision and you didn't ask them first. Because even if we're getting into a relationship with someone and we agree, hey, we're going to do this together, when you step outside of that, it shouldn't lead to a meltdown of that person where they have to start uh, a whole argument over the situation because you made a little bit of a plan without see how they handle it. That's part of life. That's part of life. Sometimes things are going to be a little bit outside of their control. If they try to control your decisions, if they're constant about criticizing your choices, that's a mind manipulation technique to undermine your faith in yourself. If they try to make you doubt yourself, time to cut them off. Time to cut them off. Um, Observe how they handle conflict. This would be number 8 if you're taking notes. Observe how they handle conflict. You want to engage in a mild disagreement with them. You can bring up a minor issue. Say, hey, I need to talk to you about something. See how they handle it. Being talked to, being offered constructive criticism. If they escalate the conflict, if they refuse to communicate, if they use manipulation tactics, gaslighting, guilt tripping, deflecting, cut them back or cut them off. Can't move forward with that situation. Okay. Um, Another thing we can do is to gauge their consistency. So pay attention if their words and their actions align over time. So if they're frequently lying, if they're flaky, if they're inconsistent in their behavior, and it makes you feel uneasy, that could be a sign you might need to pull back before moving forward with the relationship. So there are other points like paying attention how they treat others, and challenging their opinions, right? There's these little things we can do. But ultimately, now that you're approaching things, understanding that it's not about having feelings for them up front, it's not about letting loose and falling in love and free falling and all that. No, we don't want to fall in love with a person we don't know the flaws of. So it's about exposing those flaws early. Everyone has flaws. We need to know what they are. We just need to know what the person's flaws are. So then we can make a decision to love them. That's an educated choice. It's an educated decision. And that's how we want to be able to move forward in these situations. So again, reserve the love, keep keep the ability to walk away, and in the meantime, ask questions and observe how they respond to situations. Knowing how to walk away involves cutting contact with the person, sometimes letting mutual acquaintances know that you're not interested in that person. Okay. Don't leave it where your friends, your mutual friends or family members keep bringing the person up to you. Hey, what's up with that? What did you just, why? Why? Let people know, hey, I decided for me, this is not the one. And pull back and let people know so that they can stop pestering you about it. Um, if the person's dependent on you in any way, then it's polite to inform them that you're going to be breaking contact. So if you were their employee or they were your employee or you guys had an emotional relationship, then don't just ghost them if you've been talking for like a year. Just inform them of what you're doing, that you're going to be breaking off contact. Give them a little notice, a moment to react and get over the emotion or to have an emotion and to ask questions. And then understand your need to block on electronic devices. Blocking is not about being mean or spiteful or petty. It's not because you're angry. Don't block out of anger. We're blocking because we need to stop toxic people from sending toxic energy into us. So we don't want to read their messages. So we block toxic people so that they don't send toxicity to us. If you follow this pattern, if you follow what you have here, then you'll do well at being able to vet and test for toxic people.